Hi.
Hello.
Hello, everyone out there. Today we're going to try something new. We're going to be interviewing a friend of the show, lawyer Jean Richardson. So bear with us. We're going to learn as we go, and we're going to get to know this lovely gentleman.
Lovely. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm so glad you are able to join us today. And actually wanted to get to know you a little bit more. You know, since your law firm sponsors us, I thought it would be really nice for people to know who you are. You know, local boy, done good, kind of, story. So what I would love to start by asking you some get to know you questions, if you don't mind. So are you a local?
I am. I grew up in North Miami. I guess Miami in general. Went to elementary school in Miami Parks Elementary School off of 103rd Street.
Nice.
Still there, I think. Lots of trailers now, I believe. Went to Westview Junior High School. I haven't stopped by since I've been back, but I think I need to eventually when school opens back up. And went to high school at North Miami Senior High School, not too far from here.
Yeah, my high school played football against your high school all the time.
Yeah, my mom still lives in North Miami.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, grew up here and I've always wanted to come back here because my family is here. So.
Right, of course, yeah. And when did you leave? How?
Well, I started college after graduating in high school. I graduated high school in 91. And I had signed up for the military because around the time the first Gulf War was taking place. And I felt the sense of, I guess, duty to serve, right? I felt it was my patriotic responsibility. The country's at war, and you need to be involved. So I dropped out of college to my mother's dismay, I suppose. Not that she didn't want me to serve, but she's my mom, and I'm the youngest son. She has 2 sons, 4 girls.
Four girls. That must have been interesting.
Right. Yeah.
For you and your brother.
Topic for another show, I'm sure. But yeah, so it was really hard on her. But nevertheless, I felt I had a responsibility, so I joined the military in 1992. I enlisted initially, and after a few years, I think 7 years or so after I got my college degree, while I was in the military, I managed to go to school through deployments and so on and so forth. And after I got my degree, I decided to apply for a commission in the military, in the Air Force. So I got commissioned, became an officer, and moved all over the country. Had opportunity to visit interesting places, and but anyways, I'm not quite sure why I digressed so far. But what was
but that's awesome, because actually my next question was, how did you get your education, and how did you decide, coming from now, you're a commissioned officer, right? Is that how you say it correctly?
Yes,
and plus, hold on. Side note, thank you for serving. Anyways, and then, but how did you go from there to now a lawyer? Because you studied, but you didn't study being a lawyer first, right? You had
That's
other
correct.
interests.
Yeah, my undergrad is in. I started in engineering, and once I joined the military, it was kind of tough to finish engineering school, so I had to kind of recalibrate my plans a little bit. So I ended up getting a management undergrad, human resources management or human resources development. And then I was already commissioned, and at the time you needed to have a master's degree to be promotable. So I decided to get an MBA. So I have a master's in business administration. And I started thinking that, okay, I wanted to go to law school. It was either law school or medical school. But more so at the time, law school. I became more politically aware. I guess the more you learn, the more you realize that you need to learn more, the less you know, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your eyes open up a little bit more and you feel you need to kind of get involved. I felt I needed to get involved in my
Yeah,
community.
your maturity level too.
Yeah,
As you get older,
absolutely,
you're mature. You look
absolutely.
at things differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Different things affect you in the world that didn't affect you when you were
Sure, yeah,
younger.
yeah.
So yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I mean, I can recall a funny story. When I was younger, I wanted to watch cartoons, and my older brother, he wanted to watch the news, and I didn't understand why this guy's interested in watching the news. There's nothing interesting on the news. I want to watch cartoon, He-Man and She-Ra and exciting stuff, Transformers to me at the time, right? And funny enough, after I had kids of my own, and they want to watch cartoon, and I'm like, no,
I want to watch.
I want to watch the news. You need to be informed of what's going on in the world. So I bring the story in to kind of tell you that, yeah, you're absolutely correct. As you get older, you know, you wanna be more informed in what's going on, not only in your community, but in the world that we live in.
Right, right.
And towards the latter part of my career, I wanted to get involved politically. I you know, because after 20 years or so, you can retire from the military. And I wanted to come back home in this community, North Miami, and get politically involved in the community. And to kind of, you know, do whatever I can to make my community better. Right? So that's why I initially wanted to go to law school. I thought, well, if you were going to get involved in politics, in a legislature, you need to understand laws. You need to understand how to draft potential, you know, ordinances or whatever laws that impact people. You need to be able to do it effectively.
Right.
So that was my initial reason for going to law school. So after I retired from the military back in 2012, I went to law school. Actually, I really retired in 2011, but I had enough vacation, I guess you would call it, that although it was 2012, I'll take that back. It was 2012. I think I retired in 2012. So I'm getting older. So I'm getting a little forgetful. But anyways, so
let me bring out the notes for
you.
Here you
right,
go.
Exactly. So after I retired, I decided to attend law school. We were stationed at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, although we lived in St. Petersburg. So if you're familiar with...
I love St. Petersburg.
You know, Tampa, St. Pete, it's not that far, right? So we lived in St. Pete, and it just so happened that the first and oldest law school in the state of Florida, Stetson University College of Law, is like right next door, or in my backyard,
right,
really,
basically,
where we lived at the time in Gulfport, Florida. So although I got accepted to several schools, we decided to remain in St. Pete, and I attended Stetson. And I graduated law school in 2015, and wanted to come back home, but there were some other dynamics we had to deal with. So I decided to remain in St. Pete. And I accepted a position with the state attorney's office. I became a prosecutor, and I loved it. I enjoyed being a prosecutor. I felt I was making a difference in the community, particularly when I dealt with domestic violence issues and trying to help victims of domestic violence.
Which is such a very important topic in the world we're living in now. I mean, it's always been a very important topic, but being in this quarantine, I'm going to say, era, because that's where we are right now, being affected by domestic violence and this, being stuck in a house and you can't get out and you can't, I can't even imagine the importance of what you did before, and the importance of what you do now when it comes to that. Since you've been on both sides of the table, in private practice and also as a prosecutor, how much of a difference is it for you? I mean, as far as is there like a mind switch? I mean, how are you?
Well, yes, absolutely. You have to be able to kind of switch hat,
right,
so to speak. I recall when I was in law school, you have to be able to present both sides of the argument, right? You have to look at it from let's use as a prosecutor from the prosecutorial perspective, and also from the defense attorney's perspective, because sometimes you end up taking cases to trial, so you have to kind of envision what type of arguments you're going to get from the other side. So you have to be able to see it from both perspectives. If you're going to be an effective trial attorney, there's no way around it. You have to be able to do it, right? So it wasn't for me an extremely difficult transition to make. I'm rather cautious on what cases, particularly on the criminal side, that I take on.
That's good.
And yeah, I mean, I have my limitations, and sometimes I say that my hypocrisy only goes so far, right?
Right.
So I'm not driven by money. I like to help people, and if there's a case that the person can certainly afford to pay, but I don't agree with the person's views or with the facts as the person is presenting them to me, I will not take their case. I'm sure there's an attorney who will. It just will not be me.
Yeah, no, but that I think that that's good, that since you are in the private sector, that you have the capability to pick and choose who you work with and who you work for, as far as who you assist. And I think that we all wish we could have a job where we can make those decisions, like my day job, I really don't have a choice. I have to work with whoever they've hired.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm actually very lucky because, been there a while and I get to know everybody. But I think that's a very important point, be wary of the lawyer to me, as someone that's, thank goodness I haven't had to have a lawyer represent me, but I'm still young, and
Yes, you are.
And I still don't think before I do things. So hey, there's always that possibility, that be wary of the lawyer that says yes, or don't give me all the information, but you can hire me.
Right. I'll perform miracles. I'll just make all your problems go away.
Yeah,
yes.
That's like the old snake doctors.
Right,
What I mean?
Hopefully we don't have such attorneys, but who knows?
Yeah, I guess maybe because my level of knowing what an attorney does comes from watching TV.
Right.
So, I'm hoping they're not like that, but
the actual truth.
Exactly.
Extreme stretch.
Yeah, but sometimes you're like, is it really?
Yeah, no. But so, it's hard for me to watch some of these lawyer shows or movies that portrays lawyers, because oftentimes it's very, very wrong. And they do and portray attorneys in a bad light. I must say.
Yeah, I mean, and you have you always have that awesome attorney that's doing a great job, and then all of a sudden there's a crush in their conscience and they do something bad, and you're like, nah, they can't get away with that. Right. I can just picture you sitting in front of the TV, kind of getting pissed off at LA Law.
Well, LA Law is a while ago. I think I was still extremely young when that came out.
Okay, shh.
But I do remember LA Law. I do recall. Who was on there? Let's see. Latin.
Yeah. I forget their name. I'm actually not really good at remembering a lot of, like that. I can see the faces. The only thing I remember, I think one of the girls, wasn't she from like one of those 60 shows?
Was Mark Harmon on? Was it Harmon? Remember that guy from the...
Oh, well, isn't it from...
Perseus, the one who plays
it was
Clash of the Titans? I think, wasn't he on there? I think he was on there. His wife as well. Anyways, we're going off on a tangent here.
No, it's okay. I mean, if anybody listens to this podcast, they know that we kind of really just, don't stick to some kind of script.
No script.
Anyway.
It's not scripted.
No, not at all. It's all about conversations, this is a conversation I would have with you sitting in the living room sofa. I mean, I I enjoy being able to have conversations. This is, to me, is really, really interesting. And the fact that we can put some humor in it always helps, because really, honestly, when you started talking about the documents, to write the documents, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have to read one of those documents, they're actually really good. They're like a lullaby. So
Yeah.
you write those, you know.
They put me to sleep when I read them myself. So,
But yet you write them. I don't know.
well,
I don't know. I'm assuming, I'm hoping that there's like a cut and paste, you know,
lot of
portion
that.
of the document.
right.
But so going back to, so you're now in the private sector. You get the opportunity to pick and choose, you know, the cases that you work. Are you a trial lawyer?
I am a trial attorney. Yes. So, you know,
Actually, I like that word, attorney. I lawyer, like, you know, because LA law, you know, I think lawyer.
Right.
Okay, it's like cop, police officer.
right. Yeah.
So you're an attorney.
Also known as a lawyer.
So you're
I
when you
guess.
wear your tie, you're an attorney. When you're not wearing your tie, you're a lawyer. Or is
yes.
or I'm gonna throw you under the bus. Or is it the Crocs or the shoes?
Yeah, I
Because
guess.
you know I had to bring that up, right?
I guess if I have my shoes on, you know.
If I have my shoes on, I'm an attorney. If I have my Crocs on, I'm a lawyer.
That's right.
That's a good actually, yeah, that's a good definition for like the Urban Dictionary. What's the difference between your attorney and
That's
your
right.
lawyer? What shoes is he wearing?
Well, yes, yeah, shoes are important.
So how long have you been officially practicing law?
Officially, 5 years.
Mm-hmm. And how many as a prosecutor?
3 years.
And then you decided to come into the personal.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer for whatever reason, but yes. So because I started in 2015. So.
I had to figure that it probably does feel longer, because I mean, at least, again, you know, my examples are from TV shows, but I'm assuming that it's a lot more fast paced as a prosecutor, you know, in the sense that you have more cases.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
You are absolutely correct. Yes, prosecutors, based on my experience as an assistant state attorney, they are definitely overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. Not just the prosecutors, but the public defenders as well.
The public defenders, yeah.
They are, you know, great lawyers on both sides. Lots of cases, lots and lots of cases, lots and lots of clients on both sides, right? And you know, they do not get the pay and the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, no, sure. I can see that. I can see that because, you know, and especially since, you know, unless you've had to, you know, hire an attorney for X reasons, right? You don't really know. Your example is what you see on TV, so or in the movies, right? So right. And then you do see the same what you just said. You know, at least that's portrayed accurately on TV, where the defense attorneys and the prosecutors are overworked. Mm-hmm. They have so many cases, and they're expected to do a fantastic job on every single case, because and I'm assuming because you became a lawyer, especially if you become, you know, a prosecutor or defense attorney, a public defender, you choose that because you want to do good and you want to make sure people get a good representation when they need it. It comes from another place than the money place, right?
Right. Now, absolutely, yes. And I agree with that.
So it has to be so overwhelming. Like I don't know if I would be able to, to be able to separate myself from what I hear, you know, because you hear, you know, like we were talking about domestic violence and stuff like that. When someone comes and approaches you about a case like that, you know, as a human, you know, and you know it's wrong. You know, you know it shouldn't be happening, and you don't understand really how someone could be like that, because you're not like that. Let's say, you know, and how do you separate yourself? So how do you close the door of your law office and go home? And when you open that door, you have to have a separation. You know, so how do you handle it? I mean, do you drink? What do you do? Because, you know, do you know, hit a baseball, golf, you know, because there has to be some kind of release, right?
Sure. I mean, I guess for me, It's just staying active, exercising, and finding some other ways to just. When I leave work, I try to leave work at work. It's not always possible, but I do my best to do that.
Yeah.
And just enjoying time with your family, and that's what you're doing, right? I'm not working.
Right.
But as an attorney, you get calls from clients at all hours of the night, particularly if they have your cell phone, right? The calls get transferred to you. But yeah, I try to just, I have an employment, right? It's being an attorney, that's my job. And it's a passion as well, because you're helping people and, you're trying to do good. But you also have your personal life, and it's important to maintain your personal relationships, your wife, your kids, and find other interest other than that job that you have.
Right.
And I've found that's extremely helpful to me.
Well, I've only known you as the non-attorney because I haven't, needed your representation. Like I said, the years are young, and you never know what I can do. I'm pretty good at getting myself into trouble or saying things I shouldn't say, as people in the podcast will realize. So I know that you're a nice guy. I've talked to you, we've had conversations, you've got a great sense of humor, and you're a nice guy. But I'm assuming there's like a little inner asshole there. In order to be a good, trial attorney, you have to have that, be able to kind of do that switch to,
Yeah, I mean, I would phrase it as you have to be assertive when necessary, right? Sure.
Assertive equals asshole. For me,
Well,
just to
yeah,
me,
I'm sure some people would describe it as such, but absolutely, because you're gonna have, you have type A personalities on both sides, right?
Yeah.
If you're a plaintiff attorney or you were, defense attorney, and oftentimes in the civil practice, it's interchangeable at any moment.
Wow.
And both sides are going to be pushing. You're going to be a zealous advocate for your client, and you have to be assertive, right? And some attorneys are extremely aggressive. They'll try to bully you, and if you allow it,
right,
he or she wins, or they're going to have in their mind that they're going to get whatever they want, right? So you have to be able to push back. You have to be assertive. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to do your research, know the law, know your case.
Right.
But you have to do it in a respectful manner. And I try to explain to people, we can agree to disagree in the legal community. Often you have to do that, right? Because we interpret things differently, and we were all trying to do something different for our client. But the law is the law, right?
Right.
But nevertheless, like I said, you have to learn to agree to disagree. You have to be able to do it in a respectful manner, particularly when you're dealing with a judge and the system itself. And I try to reason with people. It doesn't help to yell and scream. You're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
And sometimes you have attorneys who believe that that's the way they're going to conduct business. And that's a turnoff, right?
Right.
And a judge is not going to allow it anyway in his or her courtroom. So you have to be able to deal with one another in a civilized manner, in a reasonable manner. And for the most part, I think, attorneys, we eventually figure it out, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be a lawyer, but you also have a personality. So you have to be able to find that medium, that place where you're being an attorney and being who you are has to live in the same area, that area that, where it allows you to be the human, because you don't always want to be the attorney when you have clients that really need to see your human side, and the human that knows the law, not the attorney that's knows that you're a human. I don't know if that makes, you know what I mean? Where your humanity comes in first, right?
Absolutely. And when you're an attorney, you're also a counselor at law, right? You're almost like a psychologist, right? I'm not saying, all the time, but I'm saying because you listen to people's problems
Right, yeah.
sometimes all day, and you have to be able to give them
You're like
advice.
a legal bartender. You're like the bartender, like
Exactly,
you're not
but
serving
don't give your
drinks.
clients alcohol, right?
Right. Yeah. But basically, they come to tell you. Most of the time, they're coming to share with you their worst decision that they've made or their worst experience, and you have to be able to sit across from someone, be human, and have compassion and have empathy for that person sitting across from you that got caught doing something they shouldn't have done, or is in a situation that they don't know how to get out of, or are making one of the hardest decisions of their life, which probably leaving a spouse for X reasons, and you have to have that empathy as a human, and that's really important. And actually, I wanted to ask you a question. As like to me, it's like a public service announcement for whoever's listening to us, just in case. So if something happens and what do you do when you're arrested? Like if you're stopped, DUI, or whatever it may be, and they end up taking you in. My years are young, but I have never been taken in yet.
That's a good thing.
But what, as a lawyer, so before what would you suggest someone do? I mean, obviously, don't fight the cops. Don't aggravate the situation.
Right.
Stay quiet. But what really is, what should someone actually do?
So, I mean, you gave the example of, for instance, I think you mentioned DUI.
Yeah, let's say
like
DUI. Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you get pulled over and a police officer suspects that you have been drinking alcohol, perhaps he or she observed that you swerving your vehicle on the road, you're not maintaining your vehicle within a single lane of traffic, and that you're swerving, right?
Right.
Or you ran a stop light or a stop sign, some indication that something's going on, and the police officer pulls you over, and then maybe they smell alcohol on your breath, right? Do not be argumentative, because you're escalating the situation. It's not going to help you, right? And I say cooperate in the sense, if the officer asks you for your driver's license, you have to provide it. You're not going to say, I don't have it. Well, if you don't have one, that's another citation, right?
Yeah.
So the normal driver's license, insurance, in the term of a traffic stop, you have to provide these things. But if the officer starts questioning you on substantive issues, for instance, how many drinks have you had? Now he or she's asking you to incriminate yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you know you had been drinking and you had more than one, I would encourage you to keep your mouth shut, right? You have the right to remain silent, and you should exercise that constitutional right to say nothing at all, right? Yeah. So, hey, officer, you've stopped me. Why have you stopped me? You ran a stop sign. Okay. That's that. If there's no sign of anything else, that friendly police officer should give you a citation and let you go. But the minute he or she starts asking questions about other things, you have a right to remain silent. Do not incriminate yourself. Mm-hmm. Period. Be cooperative, but do not provide evidence against yourself. It's not going to help you in the long run.
Exactly. Okay. No, that makes sense. And so now the officer has determined that they want to give you, you've decided, I'm not going to incriminate myself. I'm going to stay quiet. The officer's like, I have a feeling we're going to do a sobriety test or whatever on you. They do the sobriety test. You comply as best to that's a really good question. If they want to give you a breathalyzer or they want to do the sobriety test, can you deny or should you cooperate?
Well,
because there's two
that's
opinions.
Good question, but kind of a complicated situation. When you have a driver's license in the state of Florida, and I imagine in any state, but I'm licensed in Florida, so I can only speak right based on what goes on in Florida law. you have contracted, in essence, to comply with field sobriety exercises.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Well, just hang on a second. So now,
I will remain silent. Go ahead.
should you do it or not? Well, that's and I'm not giving legal advice here.
No.
Okay, that's entirely up to you. The officer cannot force you to comply.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to refuse. You have the right to say, well, no, I do not want to.
Mm-hmm.
But there are consequences. When you refuse, you will be arrested based on the officer's observation.
Okay.
You have the right to say, officer, no, I'm not going to do the field sobriety exercises like the walk and turn, one leg stand, and touching your nose and alphabets and all these things. No, officer, I haven't been drinking. I don't know why you want me to do these things. No. Or you don't have to say that much. You can just say, no, I don't want to do it. I prefer not to. Okay. You will automatically, immediately be arrested. Okay. And, if they take you back to the station and the same officer or someone else is going to ask you to do a breath test. Should you cooperate? That's, again, entirely up to you, right? No officer, that officer cannot force you to do it, right?
It's really up to your decision making.
And he or she shouldn't say, well, you have to do this. You don't have a choice. No, you do have a choice, but there are consequences, like I said, right? No, officer, I'm not gonna do a breath test. I'm not gonna provide it. So that's a refusal. That's called a double refusal. You refuse field sobriety exercises. You refuse a breath test, which is within your rights to do so. But again, consequences, right? So you're arrested, you charged with a DUI. Other than the officer's observation, there's very little to go on in that situation. Right. If it's your first time, you charged with a DUI, and if there's any underlying citations, you may be cited. For instance, you're in a stop sign. Okay, whatever. Now, let's say, for instance, you've had a prior incident where you refused. Oh, okay. A double refusal. Right. And now you've had a second situation where you've had to refuse. That's your second refusal. You can now be charged with a substantive crime called refusal to submit.
Okay. There's a pattern.
So now, that's another first-degree misdemeanor that you can be charged with.
Oh, I see. I didn't know. Right. That's cool. Okay. Well, I mean, that's cool, but I mean, I'm glad you did. Yeah, because I didn't know that.
Right. So if it's your second refusal, and again, in the state of Florida, you can be charged with another substantive crime. Besides the DUI that you will be charged with, you will also be charged with a double refusal, right?
Wow. Okay.
Now, maybe the state can't prove the DUI because you didn't cooperate with field sobriety exercises, with breath tests. There's nothing other than maybe the officer's observation to